Sixers suck ass, and everybody needs to be fired. I know. I used potty language. I got to shove a bar of soap in my mouth now. But as unprofessional as that may have sounded, it's the cold hard truth. The Philadelphia 76ers are horrid and need to tear it down immediately. This team is doing a disservice to its players and its fans by continuing to play as if they can go on some type of miracle play and run, make the play-in tournament, go through some grueling games, only to get swept by the Cleveland Cavaliers. There's no point whatsoever in trying to make the playoffs at this point in the season when you got Joel Embiid, who looks awful. Joel Embiid did not look very good in this game. And anybody who was intently watching saw that on the defensive end of the floor, he regressed heavily. He did not close out whatsoever on any three-pointers. And it rubbed off on the rest of the Sixers. The Sixers are the only team in the league that thinks it's okay to leave professional basketball players wide open from three. It's amazing how that mindset has continued with them for the past, 5 or so years. But yeah, the Sixers, they just love to leave players wide open from three, and it happens to be against one of the best shooting teams of all time in the Boston Celtics, who everybody on their team can shoot. They were making Peyton Pritchard look like prime Klay Thompson. And there was this one play where Embiid saw Drew Holiday get the ball in the corner. He was left wide open. Embiid looked at him and just turned back and pretended like Drew Holiday didn't exist and that Drew Holiday can't make a wide-open three-pointer, but guess what? He made it. And that happened pretty much the entire game. The Sixers would leave everybody wide open from three, get caught in screens constantly, especially Quentin Grimes. Grimes he's honestly been one of the only bright spots for this team. He's definitely better than Paul George. But yeah, he gets caught in a lot of screens, and the Sixers, they don't maneuver screens whatsoever, and guys are constantly being left wide open, and combine that with Joel Embiid's drop coverage, it is just a really bad product altogether. And what sucks, too, because this was one of the better starts the team had in beginning games. Usually, they would start terribly and get into really bad deficits. Like that Raptors game that they lost where Joel Embiid turned into Ben Simmons. They got into a 17-4 hole, like immediately. But this game, they were actually keeping up with the Celtics until they just completely broke down. It's the same story over and over again. But that's pretty much all I got when it comes to the game itself. It was already over. It was so over. It was already over by the first half, honestly. The highest lead the Celtics had was 29 points. But it got so bad for the Sixers that they had to sub in David Roddy. That's when Nick Nurse finally realized the circuits in his brain were firing, and it made him understand that the Sixers need to tank the rest of this season. And if you still think that this big three can carry them to a play-in appearance, let me just list all the games that the Sixers won and lost when this supposed big three was on the court together. Okay. So they got blown out by the Memphis Grizzlies without Ja Morant. They got blown out by the Pistons without Cade Cunningham. They got blown out to the Bucks without Giannis. They lost to the tanking Raptors. They got destroyed by the Warriors. They got destroyed by the Pacers. It's not like they're like championship contenders either. And even in the games they did win, I got to be 100% real and admit that they weren't that impressive, other than the Celtics game on Christmas Day. But let's look at all those other wins. They beat the trash Bulls, where they barely scraped by. They blew a 20-point lead to them. The trash Hornets, they beat them. They beat the Spurs before the De'Aaron Fox trade, the game Embiid and Drummond were crashing out on the ref. The trash Utah Jazz, and the trash Brooklyn Nets. Those are all the wins that the Sixers had with PG, Maxey, and Embiid. So it doesn't make sense whatsoever to think that when those guys are healthy on the court, they can make any type of noise and advance to the play-in tournament, unless it's some sort of miracle. They do have one of the easier schedule strengths, according to Tankathon.com, at 4th, but that really doesn't mean anything because This Sixers team is one of the worst teams in the league anyway, and every game is a struggle. Losing to the tanking Raptors, losing to blowing a 26-point lead to the Celtics, getting just obliterated by the Celtics in this game. I think all the writing is on the wall for this Sixers organization. There's plenty of proof that supports the idea of tanking the rest of the season. And if you still think they can make some sort of play and push, watch the rest of the Celtics game, please. Just watch how Joel Embiid was moving on the court. He didn't look right at all. But can the Sixers tank the rest of the season with full assurance that they will be able to get their pick back in the first place? And unfortunately, it's not set in stone. The Sixers are number 6th in the draft lottery odds, at least according to the almighty tankathon.com, which are decent odds for the Sixers because they got a 34.8% chance of getting a top 4 pick and an 8.3% chance at the number 1 overall pick. And it is the odds have, according to the draft lottery rules, have been more evenly dispersed through the years because of Sam Hinkie and the process. They just changed it and made it equal for the top 3 teams to get the first overall pick. But what Tankathon does not state is just the chance for the Sixers to get a top 6 pick in general. And according to an article that I read recently by the Philly Voice, shout out to Adam Aronson, I think he wrote that article. He stated that the Sixers, for keeping a pick within the top 6, it's essentially a coin flip, a 46% chance that they keep their pick and it won't go to the OKC Thunder. So if you're taking the rest of the season, if you stay right where you are, then you can have a decent shot at getting that pick back. But the Sixers' strength of schedule does play a big role in their ability to tank the rest of the season, in a good way too, because they play the Toronto Raptors 2 more times. And as you could see, the Raptors are ahead of the Sixers in the tanking race, which means that if they lose to the Raptors 2 more times, that can significantly shift the placements, because who knows, maybe the Raptors will go on some other winning streak and the Sixers will continue to lose, but having those losses that directly impact their records head to head will really help the Sixers out if they are able to jump the leaderboard. And if they could get that 5th spot in the lottery odds, that will give them an even better chance at keeping that top 6 pick. But you also got to look out for the Chicago Bulls too. They host them 2 more times this season, and the Bulls are only a game and a half behind the 76ers. So, well, no, they have more wins than the Sixers. That's so confusing with the Tankathon and how that works and how it ranks teams based on how well they're losing. But yeah, the Bulls are ahead of the Sixers. They're still in the play-in tournament. But if the Sixers can keep losing, and if they can lose their games to the Bulls, that helps out even more. As long as the Sixers lose these key matchups, I think they will be in the right spot in heading towards the right direction and tanking the rest of the season. Now, will they be able to catch up to the Charlotte Hornets or the Jazz or the Pelicans or the Wizards? Probably not, in all honesty, but for how this season has gone, if they can pass the Raptors and have a real shot at keeping that top 6 pick, not only are you going to be next season, you get to add a decent draft pick to build around Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. It's a win-win for both sides. For the Sixers organization, they get to try and make a good run at a top selection. And for Joel Embiid and Paul George, who are older and kind of... So it's an interesting scenario for the Sixers, but it's the right one to take at this point. I don't want to sound super opinionated and like I know everything, but I feel like I really am expressing the feelings of the fan base right now. We have had enough. We have seen this team. We have seen all we need to know. The fact that we have to debate, we have so many options to debate what the worst game of the season was, really is just a true testament to how horrible this season has been. And the fact that this season is over, it puts a lot of pressure on the Sixers organization, and I think they're starting to understand that too. I can't really see how Nick Nurse thinks that by the way Embiid is looking, that he can continue to play him. Now, does Nick Nurse necessarily have 100% influence on whether Embiid plays or not? Well, when you factor in the higher ups in the organization, the ownership, and all that, it gets kind of iffy. But the Sixers are lined up to go and tank, and it's a win-win for both sides. There's really no shame in tanking the rest of the season when you're clearly injured, when the reputation of Joel Embiid and Paul George are plummeting every single game because they're failing to live up to expectations. It is something the Sixers organization needs to think about, and something I really hope that they do, because the moves that Daryl Morey has been making recently have been decent in at least building out their young core, getting guys like Jared Butler, Quentin Grimes, even Lonnie Walker. You know what I mean? Finally stockpiling on assets that they can use in the future to acquire maybe some more win-now players. But, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I hope that the Sixers try and tank the rest of the season. Are they really going to do that? I have no idea, but they might be doing it inadvertently because they're just so bad when Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey are on the court anyway. It maybe doesn't even matter if they shut them down, but just with the reports of Embiid maybe needing another surgery and them now saying that they're frustrated with the way his meniscus has been bothering him too much, all signs are pointing towards a full-time tank, and I'm all here for it. But that's pretty much all I got. Thank you for watching here until the end. We will continue to ride out this season no matter what, because here on NZ for 3, we are sick in the head and are addicted to this horrible basketball franchise. But that's pretty much all I got. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Peace.